Thank you. So, Simon, start with you, just whilst we're waiting for some questions coming from the audience. Uh, Question about environmental footprint. You're looking to operate in Tasmania, which is quite ESG sensitive. How are you managing your environmental impact at Heemskirk?
Sure. We've there's been quite a few environmental studies done on the project with previous management about 5 or 6 years ago. We're redoing all of that work now. We've got about 12 months of baseline work that we're redoing now with our consultants. The area that we've got the mine where the mine will be is actually a deforested area. It's on the edge of a town. It was 1890, 1900s. They came in and pretty much deforested the area looking for lead zinc. It's a bit like Kalgoorlie. There's mine shafts everywhere. So we're not in a environmentally sensitive area. We're not in the Tarkine Forest or the Franklin or anywhere like that, but we're doing all that we can at the moment on water quality, air quality, etc. All of that information gets fed into a notice of intent, which we'll lodge when we do the pre-feasibility next year, which gets lodged with the EPA, and then we get feedback from the EPA on what other requirements are needed on the environmental side. And just to add, as I said earlier, we've actually looked at an area just south of our project that has already had an existing lead zinc deposit on it, and we're looking to reuse that as infrastructure. It already has tailings facilities, it already has waste dumps and areas for ROM pads, etc. So and we're looking at part of the pre-feasibility study as well is potentially putting a lot of the material back down the mine with a paste and fill plant. So that's all in train at the moment in the feasibility work.
Thank you very much. So we have a question for Don for Cornish Metals. What is the capex for South Crofty, and also how much dewatering of the mine is still yet to be done?
Okay, a capex of $177 million. That's in the PEA phase. From a mine dewatering perspective, the plan was to dewater the whole mine and then do the shaft refurbishment. And as they were going down, we are around about 260 meters at the moment. Some of the wood bunting started to become unstable. So the plan was to start with a refurbishment parallel to shutting the water down. So we've keeping the water now at the 260 level, and we're doing the shaft refurbishment simultaneously. We're sitting at about 140 meters at the moment, replacing all the wooden buntings with galvanized steel, and also increasing the size of that compartment.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I was lucky enough to visit South Crofty around this time last year. Saw a lot of refurbishment work going on with the historical working. So if you can provide a bit more of an update on what you're doing at the moment there.
Yeah, like I said, we're busy with the shaft refurbishment, and so the original shaft was one portion of the shaft was refurbished in the late 80s. The other part is wood structure, so we're busy taking out the wood and replacing that with galvanized steel. But in that whole process, we're doubling the size of the cage that we can take down. That obviously will have a huge impact from a material perspective. We're now at 140 meters below surface and basically just stabilizing the sides. But I'm very impressed with the fact that even while it was underwater, there's no material impact to the stability of the shaft.
Thank you very much. And now over to Sally. Thank you for bringing your award. It's always nice to see that as well. Yeah, a question about crowdfunding as the source of your investment. Something that we don't see so often. What's your experience with raising money that way, and do you have plans for another raise?
We are about to embark on another fundraise. We are looking to raise around £3 million. I think the bulk of that will be by private placing, as we have done before. The pattern has been private placing and then a top up through Crowdcube. There's a relatively small percentage of our shareholders have coming through Crowdcube. But I think it's a great way of expanding your shareholder base. I think it's a great way of getting support from the wider community, who for £50 or 15 up to whatever, a small amount, actually feel part of it. And we've really seen the benefit of that. So yeah, I think for the foreseeable future, we'll probably do a crowdfunding element as well. And something that we always do is we do the crowdfunding element at the same valuation as the private placing. So everyone is treated fairly. We've got one class of shares, no preferential rights, except the normal preemption rights you have in UK companies. So it's a very democratic process, and yeah, we like it.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, mentioning sort of a makeup of private as well. Roughly, what's your split in terms of institutional versus retail investors?
The retail investors, I would say, are around, well, they're under 2% as a class. Because I founded it, I still have a few shares, and I'll no doubt get further diluted as time goes by, and that's completely right that should happen. We have a couple of funds who have come in, but the bulk of our shareholders are high net worth individuals, and we've actually this week had some amazingly good news, because after a long hard fight with the revenue, UK HMRC, we've actually now just heard that we have EIS status, which means that for UK taxpayers who invest in us, the gain is tax-free, provided they hold the shares for 3 years and subject to the EIS rules. And in the year they make the investment, they can set it off income tax. There's a rollover facility, so a previous gain can be rolled over into Cornish tin with certain limitations. I'm not giving anyone tax advice here. I'm just giving the key highlights of the EIS rules, I must say. But and of course, if we go bust, then they can set the whole lot off against their income tax bill. So, it's a very, very significant tax break. And particularly after the recent budget here, when people were worried about what was going to change in CGT and were hastily taking money out of their pension pot, what I'm hoping is that the money they've taken out is still sitting there in the bank, and they might like to think about investing in critical minerals, because it would really be, it's an exciting opportunity. And the stage we're at, there's significant upside potential. We haven't listed, so we're in control of our own destiny. We haven't sold out to a strategic partner. We are a very agile, rapidly moving team, and we like it like that. So for as long as possible, we're going to stay private and try and just keep adding value to our shareholders. That's the strategy for the next couple of years.
Thank you. And then just looking at the historical workings, do you plan to use those at present, or are you going in from a different perspective, or going to use the we've already got?
That's a very good question, and we are constantly thinking of how we might mine this. It's obviously got potential to be mined as a combined resource, but on the other hand, you've got this amazing situation, quite unusual, in that you've got your lithium fields to the east and your historic workings adjacent to, but in a slightly separate area. I wouldn't like to to say anything about how we're going to mine it, because I think it's too early days really. But to answer your question, I think it's unlikely that we'll use any of the existing shafts because it might be that one or two are useful for ventilation, but it's a very dissimilar situation to South Crofty, in that these mines were closed in the 1870s, and actually, I think especially if our new mineralised zone under Wheel Vore is demonstrated in the early part of next year, as I hope it will be, then it makes a lot of sense just to design and build our own infrastructure, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. And Simon, going back to Heemskirk, you've had some very exciting ore sorting results that look incredibly promising for Heemskirk. How will that sort of impact your processing recovery, and is there the prospect for reprocessing of your tailings from that process?
Yeah, so those results that I showed in the presentation today were done in 2017, 2018, prior to new management coming on, and really bench scale work. So we didn't have enough, they hadn't done enough work to include that in our scoping study, which we've just put out. So what we've just done recently is I think we've sent off about 100 kilograms of material for test work in Perth, Western Australia. That test work has happened. They've done the initial ore sorting work, and now we're sending that material off for assay to see how the new results are, and then we can incorporate that into the pre-feasibility work. So the key for us is to then optimise what plant size we're going to need. So I think in the slide there I showed our initial mining rate was 350,000 tonnes per annum. If we can, double the resource and compress our mine life down, I think it was 23 years mine life with that whole resource that we had. If we can get that, we can mine at 700 or 750,000 tonnes. Depending on the ore sorting, that'll depend on how much material goes through the plant and what size plant we're going to need. As far as tailings, we obviously haven't got any tailings as yet. Most of the tailings will stay there. The ore sorting is really there for the initial processing. I know Rentails, which is a project that Metals X have up the road, are looking at their tailings material at the moment. And there's a full study on that, but we're pretty focused on the initial work first.
Okay, thank you very much. And then a question from the audience for all speakers. So we'll start with you, Simon. What's your biggest challenge related to investment in your project?
Biggest challenge? Well, we're well funded at the moment. So I think the biggest challenge was a year ago when we scraped together $1 million in a very difficult market for juniors. And I think I think at that time we raised $1 million, I think of which the directors wrote about 300 of that. And that was a really tough time to get investment. And then we did with that money what we said we were going to do. And we went out and started drilling, and that then attracted the funds to come into the project. And that's always the biggest challenge, is to keep ahead of your funding with your work and make sure you've got money coming in the door. So I think that's the toughest thing, is making sure you've got the money there. You use that money as you said you're going to use it for your investors, and then you'll be rewarded moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, same question to you, Don.
Well, I can only speak from what I know at the moment. Obviously, historically, they managed to get the funds in place. I think the VBR, or Vision Blue Resources, was critical in that whole process, and they actually supported us again, from a £7 million from a loan that they put into the company. Yeah, looking forward, I think it looks like there is the support is there, obviously from Vision Blue and others, and we've been engaging, myself and Fauzi, our Chief Development Officer, in the last couple of weeks, over 70 meetings, and there's lots of interest. I think people realize what we have, so it's maybe ask me that question again in 6 months' time.
Will do, for certain. And yes, same question to you, Sally, as well. Biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge to the project is the availability of adequate funding, without a doubt. And we've had some fantastic results. We've got significant upside potential, but we're at too early a stage for your average fund manager to consider investing, because the due diligence is not worth doing for the sort of sums that we want. So the next raise is a small raise, 3 million. We haven't taken any government money so far. We have not had any grant funding and no support from the government. I'm beginning to wonder whether we ought to be pushing the government to allocate some of the National Wealth Fund to a scheme not dissimilar to the Australian Exploration Incentive Scheme. So match funding, it would have to stack up from a commercial point of view, but it would inject so much energy into the minerals sector in the UK if the government could actually match fund true exploration drilling, true exploration where there was yet to be a mine in existence. The government backing would crowd in other private funding, and private funders would have the security of knowing that there was the government backing there as well. And it would, I think, transform the position. So it's a new idea. We'll be discussing it, but I think that the time is right. Now we've got a new Labour government who are very pro-mining. I mean, I've never heard tin and copper mentioned and lithium mentioned so often in the House of Parliament as we have in the last few weeks. Now's the time to really see whether we can get the government to become more aligned to the rest of the world in how it supports its junior mining sector.
Hey, thank you very much. Some very interesting answers there. So now just hit 1 o'clock. So I think we will wrap up there for today. So thank you very much to all of our speakers. Thank you to Simon, Sally, and Don for the session just now. I'd also like to extend a thanks to everyone who has come both in person and online, and to those who will be viewing this on demand in the future. So all of the sessions from today have been recorded, and presentations will be available on our website early next week. Also, thank you more broadly to our Explorers and Developers group who sponsor this conference even. I won't be singing, don't worry. So yeah, that's a thank you to Cornish Metals, Cornish Tin and Stellar Resources here today, then Elementos and First Tin who joined us virtually, and then the explorers who aren't here today, that's Atlantic Tin, Iloro Resources, Huntor Australia and Trinity Metals. So if you want to know any more information about any of these companies, we do have a page on our website that is dedicated to the explorers and developers, and you can access their websites and some introductory info as well about them all. So if you do have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. From ITA, we have our CEO, Helen Prinz, who is here. We have Myra from Sustainability, Tom and I from the Markets team, and we also have Georgia from Technology. So I think we've got good coverage there. So please do ask as many questions as you have. Yeah, thank you again to everyone. And I think we will head to lunch. So thank you very much.